Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video. This video, I'm going to discuss this little mini tree diorama that I did. I did this as a thank you for somebody, and one of the things that I wanted to take advantage of is that because of its small size, it gave me a chance to try some new things. And as I always say as a tip, always start with something small so you can do it multiple times rather than doing something really big and only getting to learn once. So this gave me a chance to try out some new techniques and materials, and I thought before I put it in the mail, I would give you a chance to take a look at it. So we'll go over to the bench and I'll show you a little bit more about it and some thoughts I had on making it. So, taking a look at my little tiny diorama here, there were a few things that I wanted to focus on when I made it, and the first was to make a wire armature for the tree. Now, this is a very shallow depth of field, so I'm hoping that relevant parts will be in focus from time to time. So when I built this up with wire, I discovered that it took more wire than I expected. I was using pretty small copper wire, but once I had gotten my bundle and started my working way up, these areas got thin real fast, so I had to go back in and add more wire to branches and to thicken it up, which meant then it was disproportionate, so I went back down and I added more wire down here. Lesson learned, lots more wire. Then for the leaves, I used knock leaves. I'm going to be doing a review of them, but it's a leaf foliage, and I didn't use anything else as a substrate for the leaves. I basically applied an adhesive, I can't remember at the moment which it was, might have been just white glue, and then put the leaves on it, and then once I dried that, I did it again, and then I did it again to build up some thickness in the leaves, and I think that actually worked out pretty well. Interestingly enough, what is the scale for this? This really could be 15 millimeter approximately, and the leaves work well at 15, but I think they could also work well at 30. We'll talk about that in the review, but in any case, gives you a sense of the scale of the leaves as well. And I'll probably use this piece in the review, which I'm shooting right now. Another thing that I did was to use some regular dried leaves from my yard, grind them up, and use them as fallen leaves beneath the tree to try to give it a little bit, so here's the dead leaves from last season. What I thought about it afterwards, though, is that I think they're a little too yellow. Leaves that I see in my yard when they are fully aged by the middle of next year, they're really quite brown. So not sure about that color choice. However, what I ended up doing afterwards was then I put in these little clumps of sort of purple flowers. I didn't want to add too many. I don't want this to look like, a floral show, but I wanted to add something with a little color because everything else is pretty, green and brown. And the purple makes a nice contrast, a complementary color, if you will, to the yellows in the leaves. And I didn't intend that. And I guess maybe my natural eye is, picking out complementary colors even when I'm not thinking about it. So that actually ended up working well, but I'm going to be thinking more about the colors of leaves for dead leaves as I go forward. One of the things that I didn't do is I didn't take any of the roots and put them, over the rocks climbing over. It would look great, but, for the size of this piece and for the amount of time I wanted to invest in it, it just really wasn't practical. So when my trees get bigger, I'll be exploring some of those options a little bit more. But for right now, I just wanted to keep it as the tree, and let's just work on, the shaping of the tree, trying to capture a little bit of the bark texture. And I think, I can't remember what I coated this with. I think it was just gloss gel, and I just put texture in it as it was drying. It's hard to put really fine detail in something this small without a lot more work, and I was willing to compromise on it being slightly, what's the word I'm looking for? Slightly suggestive, that is it, of bark rather than trying to get it perfect. And I think that's what I used. If I didn't, then don't hold me to it. And before I leave this piece, a couple of comments on the rocks. These are plaster casts, and I just sort of built up the back and pushed them in. But I used the sort of leopard spotting pattern wash when I painted them, which is sort of like a Woodland Scenics technique, where you take the bare plaster and then you splotch on a little bit of dilute pigment, and then you sort of blend it all together with a wash of black. Man, I do not like that method. I don't know if it's because of the plaster I'm using, but I got, very hard to control the color, and you can see along some of these edges, it was sort of rubbing off as I was handling the piece. Didn't like that at all. This piece is way too small. I mean, these are a little, here's my finger. So these are pretty small pieces to try to use the Bragdon technique, which is a gesso base. And if you're not familiar with the Bragdon method, I wrote a Patreon column on it. So if you go to my Patreon page, wherever that is, it's going to come up here. In the monthly columns, you'll have to scroll down to find the monthly column sort of list that has the most, all of the previous ones listed. But I talk about the Bragdon technique in more detail. But however, this really helped to show why I like the Bragdon technique so much and why I will be using it as my primary rock painting technique going forward. So just before we leave this piece, I just want to say, it was just a fun little piece to do, It was such a small sort of palette, or not a palette, I don't know what you want to call it here. What is this? A plate, a canvas. There we go. This is a tiny little canvas to work on, but a great opportunity to try a very simple wire armature brush, get a triamine and get a sense of what that's like, and just sort of get my feet wet, if you will, back into a different kind of terrain than the ocean boards. And the last thought before I leave, I just put in some taller bushes in the back to try to frame the sort of groundwork here, and to give the back of the piece a little bit, like I said, of a little bit of a framing, a little bit of something to check up the eye before it falls off the back of the piece. So there you go. There's a look at my mini tree diorama. Fun little piece. Really glad I did it. So hopefully you enjoyed taking a look at this project. It was fun for me, something small, kind of get my hands back into something different other than the ocean boards, which took quite some time. But just a really nice feeling getting back to something fresh, because it has been too long, I think, touching something else. And it's been a nice little primer for some of the work that's coming up. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully it's intrigued you enough to come back for another view of some of the projects that are coming up, because you know that I will be back soon with another TerranScapes video.